Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Today marks the beginning of the final weekend of regular online season matches for the Vanguard season. After this is just Mw2 and the World Championship, but a massive weekend of course, especially for OpTic Texas, a big game against Toronto Ultra. They need to win for the context of their season, and given that Bakar Charpin has been a key talking point for that team the last couple of weeks or so, seems like they may have asked Clayster for his opinion on what he's learned from challenges, on what exactly to bring to their Bakar setup. If that improves it, could it improve their chances for the rest of the year? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Really to the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Plenty to discuss today. Firstly, wanted to mention this about Modern Warfare 2. The whole ranked play idea. We've seen the last few years there's been a lot of frustration. Why is ranked play not coming with the game at launch? I don't necessarily mind it not being the game right at launch if it comes within 2 weeks, 3 weeks maximum really. Just because the game needs a little bit of time to figure out, okay, what is like a realistic competitive meta? What are the good maps? You can't really have ranked play at launch if you don't have an idea what the good maps are. Of course, the ideal world is that the pros playtest the game a few weeks before it actually comes out. They can then give the indication, find out what the ranked play mode should look like, and therefore it can come on launch. But the reality is, it's usually going to take a little bit of time after launch, but, you know, hopefully this is much sooner than it was before. I think certainly the implication here is that it will be coming shortly after launch, which I'm hoping is within a month or so. Like, of course, the last few years it's been tragic how long it has taken, but again, Treyarch are going to lead development. So this year in Vanguard, like, all things considered, the rank play system is pretty good. It's one of the better ones we've had. Like, I reckon that Treyarch are just going to copy and paste it over for Modern Warfare 2, which is honestly a good sign, all things considered. Much better, of course, than what we had in the original Modern Warfare game, where ranked play wasn't really a thing that even was an option, right? So, yes, this is, I suppose, good news at the very least. Obviously, look, maybe we should have better expectations, such that the rank play can actually come at launch and stuff, and I don't know what shortly after launch means, whether that's, you know, a few months after launch, because in the context of Modern Warfare 2 being a 2-year title, maybe that's a slightly different story. But from my perspective, the ideal world is the game comes out at the end of October, ranked play launches mid-November with, you know, an actual CDL event that goes on, a pre-season event around that same time. That's how the CDL should have been doing things for years. We'll see if that's even possible. Also, some talk on the perks that are returning for Modern Warfare 2019. So these are some of the ones that are returning, and some new perks as well. So if you guys want to read anything into what these perks might mean, Focus was actually a perk back in Ghost, which is effectively toughness, but I don't know if that'll be the same thing this time around. This also, just to say that apparently Modern Warfare 2's rank play will be pretty much similar or exactly identical to how Vanguard's is. So yeah, just some further discussion points on that. This also just want to talk about the Challenger side, because of course this weekend is the Boston Challengers event that is going on. A winner will be crowned, of course, from the weekends. And a World Challengers, such a poor stage right now. We saw yesterday that Standy and Guerrillas were helping to fund a team. We even see this Aerial Array squad is help getting funded by Caesar Skies, which is honestly kind of crazy. As Crone says, like a Challenger's such a bad spot that pro players plus Guerrillas have to help fund teams to the Boston Open. So apparently Vivid and Mac also helping a team as well. So like also great stuff for these pro players, but still this should not really be a thing that ever should be required in the Challengers world in an ideal situation. And also we did look at yesterday, right, the idea that apparently the kind of LCQ is now going to be top 32 seeds rather than top 8, but of course this is only the present rumour, and as Prezi says, who kind of came up with the format that was proposed by Doug, and Prezi of course himself to the CDL says disappointing. They acknowledged my champ's proposal, confirming Dissenter as being reviewed, but Doug says it's potentially fake news, as in like this stuff that's being talked about with the LCQs being top 32 teams might not be the case. There might be more to it. Like Doug just says he hasn't heard anything yet, so we shall see if there's any updates on this over the coming days as well. This also I thought was rather interesting, because FaZe, I don't know, ever since Nick Scott left their kind of social media department, it's fallen off a cliff, I can't lie. They come up with this yesterday, which they were getting roasted for this, I think understandably so, really. Like, I mean, look, they come out and say the following: our entire organisation wants to apologise for the misguided tweet post of resale. I was thinking, what was this tweet? I didn't really see any tweets. This is not okay. We understand there is no room for misogynistic or harassing behaviour, and that women and the Call of Duty community deserve better. We deeply apologise to those we have offended, and know that we have fallen short of your expectations and ours. We have addressed this issue internally, and vowed to move forward in a positive manner for all. So, interesting statement. I was like, okay, what's this even about? What are you talking about? Now, it turns out it was about this tweet, which, look, admittedly, I did see the caption. I was like, the caption's a bit weird, but I thought the tweet itself was kind of funny, really. They've put out, it's kind of a classic thing. They take some sort of girl filter, however they do this, take a bunch of pros, and then do this tweet. I think I even brought it up at the start of one of my videos for a bit of a laugh. And yeah, the caption's a bit strange, right? How many drinks to take them home, i.e. how many drinks should you have to for them to look good enough to take them home? Like, you know, it's a little bit maybe questionable in that sense, right? But of course, I think they were getting roasted for this. I don't really see any of it at the time, but yeah, people weren't particularly happy with this tweet. And then, okay, look, whatever. If the caption's weird, take the tweet down. Like, no harm, no foul, really. I didn't think there was any too much of an issue about it, to be perfectly honest. And then, of course, they come up with that statement, and then they say, like, you know, we humbly apologize or whatever exactly it was. So, I don't know, people are calling them soft. I thought the fact that they did that kind of like, serious apology was a little bit unnecessary personally, right? Okay, yeah, maybe the tweet was a bit weird, but I feel like going to these lengths, wasn't exactly necessary. I don't know, maybe you guys disagree with me, but I mean, yeah, so Breaker would say, anyway, who would you respectfully take to a very simple classic dinner and movie date? So yeah, no comment on this one. The Breaker boys back at it again. Now look, let's talk about the Clayster situation, right? He's of course had a pretty tough time this season. He's been down there in challenges since getting benched by the New York subliners, and honestly, like from his POV, and I think a lot of people have said this as well, that players have learned an awful lot down there in challenges. Major Maniac said it, like the likes of Neptune, I'm sure have said it as well. Like, there's been a few players this season that have gone down from the Pro League to challenges, learned a fair bit and come back. Even Havok, who was a big talking point when he joined Rokkr, that he was teaching them an awful lot of new stuff they weren't aware of because of what he learned in challenges. Like, people are a lot more nerdy down in challenges often with the spots they have, and because the teams often get a lot more reps down there in kind of competitive play because there's a lot more tournaments and cups and elite and all this stuff going on, they often have like a more well-developed idea of how to play certain maps, even if the skill ceiling isn't quite what it is in pro play with the comms and also the pure talent on the team as well. But of course, Clay's been down there. He's kind of, in my perspective, scouting talent to a degree for who he wants to team with next year if he gets an opportunity to lead a squad. But of course, a big talking point really has been OpTic's Bacage, because they were pretty good at the Bacage earlier this year, there's no doubt. But at the moment, every single team in the game seems to love playing this map. Like, Paris even played them on it. Like, you've got Seattle, New York, like Los Angeles, Guerrillas, FaZe love to play this map as well. Toronto, they're not incredibly keen on this map, but they certainly do play it. So like, it's something that OpTic certainly need to have in their arsenal. Because their Berlin has never been that good, they need to be a dominant Bacage team. And theoretically, with the players they have, they should be a great team on Bacage. They did, of course, beat Paris on it, but it was a strange map where they outslayed Paris by like 40 kills and won by 40 points, which, certainly if you're outslaying by that much, it should theoretically be a more dominant situation. So I think they've probably been thinking, how can we improve? And Illy's taken this to a new level, and seemingly has kind of talked to Clayster, maybe asked Clayster for advice about it, and they had a few words to say on it, and Clayster kind of revealed that he has some ideas on how OpTic can potentially play this better, and of course other teams as well. And well, if OpTic maybe take this advice to heart, that could be a massive factor.
I was talking to Ender the other day, and it's a concept we were talking about, like on Bocage, they use a lot, where like, let them fuck up and try and get time first on like P1s, and then kill that kid, get the blood, and then all the trades, you have number advantage on all the trades, and then you can end up milking time if you just like let them touch first, Yeah.
So that was the thing, right? They did manage to beat Paris on this map, Bacage, but when they played subliners, they got pretty much comprehensively outclassed, even in a map where they didn't get that much outside. You guys can see right here, it's pretty small in the top left-hand side, but the slaying is pretty much even right now. I think it's it's pretty much dead even in terms of the slaying across the board, but OpTic at this point already down by 30 points. They lose this map by a fair bit as well, and I mean, it just seems like New York right now are playing probably the most fundamentally good hardpoint in the world. And maybe Clayster isn't the best guy to ask, just because when they had Clayster at the start of the season, New York were by far the worst hardpoint team in the world, and they'd lost all those hard points in a row. The positive thing, of course, is for OpTic in their massive series against Toronto is that Toronto earlier this year were also a pretty terrible hardpoint team. During stage 2, they had a tragic time in hardpoint, and then they started to kind of rebound for stage 3, and then into stage 4, though, it's their hardpoint really that's fallen off again. So if you're OpTic, you can't really afford to let this series go game 5, because OpTic versus Toronto game 5, it's only going to go one way, at least based on historical data, so OpTic need to win this in 3 or 4. Will Bacage actually be played in this match? That's another question entirely, but it does seem like pretty much every single match right now, people are going for Bacage, because I think a lot of teams think that if you're kind of a lower seed or whatever, like, you might as well just go for Bacage, because I think a lot of people think it's 50-50, but the better teams, the Seattles of the world, the New Yorks of the world, will win this more often than they will lose it, right? And OpTic so far this year, like, they've kind of gone mixed bag really on, of course, picking and banning Bacage. They've picked it 8 times, banned it 6 times, so map that they generally do like, and sometimes they will actually pick it into their opponents pretty much as consistently at times as a Mw2 or a Tuscan, or whatever the case might be. Whether it will be played this weekend is another question, but thought it was interesting. Clayster had some ideas that, okay, the plan is just to let them get control of the hill, get one kill and break it, because the hills are so small, generally the nades are going to do a lot of damage, so setting up in that way might be something that OpTic hadn't considered. Maybe that's a new idea that Illy can take back to Rambo in the team in scrims, and it just shows that Illy, right, he's not just sitting there and like just playing the game and playing scrims. He wants to learn how to improve and get all these new ideas on board, and talking to Clayster might be a way to do that, because yeah, Clay at the start of the season might not have been the greatest player, but I'm sure he has a lot of information information from that down there in the Challengers world that other teams could potentially use. So let's talk about the matches for this weekend. Then Nero Poison says ARs are blessed. Yeah, I'll run at sub to row because I mean, yeah, Nero's absolutely frying. Oh my god, those shots were pretty damn nice indeed. He doesn't get the 6th, unfortunately, but yeah, the walking 0.6 lately for Nero has become a walking, 1.3, and if he continues this weekend, it's a scary sign for the rest of the league, because Toronto actually play Boston their first matchup on Saturday before they play OpTic on Sunday, and of course that's going to determine a lot of the momentum, for example, that Toronto might bring into OpTic series at the weekend. This one, the Sublanders, of course, will be here in a week. This is the venue, the King's Theatre or whatever, for the major. Beautiful looking venue. Not sure exactly what it's going to look like or what the setup's going to be for the major event, but exciting nonetheless, because the venue's absolutely beautiful. And this from Paul Electroid, I'm going to be Paris's #1 fan this week. So that's the thing for New York, right? They really need Paris to try and get a win here up against Florida either or the Minnesota Rokkr. If they can do that, then, well, they're seriously in business, New York. But if they can't, then still New York have a pretty tough time ahead of them. So far, they have won all 4 of their games. They do play Los Angeles Thieves on Sunday. I think the games this weekend really do ramp up throughout the weekend, because today is kind of like a little bit of a warm-up. Tomorrow gets pretty good. And then Sunday, OpTic Ultra, Thieves, Sublanders to finish out the week. 2 absolutely banger games. And Guerrillas Ravens is not bad at all, because that's an important matchup if Guerrillas could possibly get a victory there. These, though, are the 3 games of today. FaZe versus Royal Ravens. This is the game that really doesn't matter that much of the day. Ravens, of course, they're 3-0 right now. They would quite like to win this to get to 4-0 potentially, and then they could put themselves in the spot to actually get to a dominant, well, winners bracket position for the major. They should be solidified for winners regardless. They probably don't mind too much. And FaZe lost their last series to LAG, so they're going to look to rebound. But if London can win this, or like at least make it competitive, I don't think they will, but maybe a 3-1 or something in FaZe's favour, then FaZe, if they were to lose here at 2-2, does get a bit spicy for them, right? Because I think they play Seattle on Sunday, so this is pretty much a must-win for FaZe, because they can't afford to play Seattle to potentially go 2-3, and then not even make winners bracket potentially, right? And they could be all the way down there, so that's what's going to be kind of crazy, because if FaZe don't get a great seed for the major, then you could potentially have like a New York versus FaZe round 1 of the major, and if they drop down to losers, they play OpTic, right? If that was New York, so that's at least a world in which that can happen based on the way the seeding has worked out so far. Then at Mutineers Paris, like, look, I've got to take Mutineers. I can't in good faith actually pick Paris to win a series, but I do think if there's any series this season that they can win, this is like well, at the 2 they already won earlier this year, this is probably the one they have the best chance in, because Mutineers, their respawn has been very suspect. Their search and destroy has been certainly better than Paris is, but I do feel like Paris can win at least one of the hard points in this series, and maybe the control as well, based on the way that Mutineers have been playing lately, and maybe they've improved and looked at what Paris do, but I still think that Paris, if they can somehow sneak out the Game 2 search, I think they can win this series. If they can't, I'm not convinced. But New York is certainly hoping that Paris can find a way to do that, because if they can take 10 points off the Mutineers here, then that puts New York in a much more promising position to overtake those 2 teams through to the World Championship, because they're only 10 points behind right now, but if both Mutineers and Rokkr this week beat Paris, then all of a sudden New York's deficit is still 20 points. Then Surge versus Rokkr. Massive series for both teams here, because Surge right now are 1-2. They're not looking so good so far at this stage. They need to win this to get their winners bracket seed, and Rokkr really need the 10 points. Yes, they play Paris anyway later on, I'm pretty sure, on the Saturday, but both those teams right now are 1-2, pretty much at the same point in the standings, at least for this stage. So, you know, honestly, a massive series. So, like, it's a bit of a warm-up day today, but still, everything is incredibly important. Very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit on the like button. It's also YouTube gods. It's a good video. Others like you should see it as well, and I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.